stay on that particular story, but take you to the very ground where it continues to develop, where South Africans continue to mourn the passing of the traditional Prime Minister to the AmaZulu royal family and founder of the IFP, as we've been engaging. Senior reporter Dasen Thathiah is in Ulundi tracking developments there and joins us this afternoon after dignitaries visit the Buthelezi family to pay their respects. So a very good afternoon to you, Dasen. I mean, what is the latest in terms of funeral arrangements? I think everybody's kind of watching keenly as to when those official announcements will be made and really what they will entail.
Well, Rofiwa, the Kwapindangene homestead is somewhat quieter than it was earlier today, and that's when mourners were streaming in. You know that the ANC had brought a delegation here, but it's not just them. Obviously, members of the IFP were here, as well as community members that were just coming to pay their respects. But the important information coming out this afternoon is that those funeral arrangements have now been announced. There was a statement that was released by the Office of the Premier in KwaZulu-Natal, and that states that the funeral will in fact take place on Friday. There was a lot of speculation initially that the funeral may take place at the weekend, possibly on Saturday, but it's now been confirmed after that meeting among government officials, the IFP and the family as well, which now decided that the funeral will in fact take place on Friday. The Office of the Premier also says that there is ongoing communication between itself and the presidency, and that's over the category of a funeral that will be held. They're expecting to receive some feedback or announcement soon. So that is the important information that is coming through. But during the course of the day, I can tell you that those tributes continued to pour in here. Many of the mourners that had come here sharing some of their experiences, sharing some of the reasons why they find that they want to also celebrate the life of the late founder of the IFP. Among those that we spoke to was also the family of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And let's take a listen now to part of an interview that was conducted with Prince Zuzifa Buthelezi by our team earlier today.
What has helped me personally, I mean, my siblings can talk for themselves, I've been helped by observing him. That has helped me. How he has navigated his life is what I believe I need. Those are the tools I need now to navigate my life, because if there's one thing he did very well was to cut out the noise. Otherwise, he always says he would have never achieved what he achieved now. I've heard that noise, I've lived with that noise. At university, as I was coming up, I had a lot of that, even threats to my life. There were times when I had to be plucked out of the university because I'm going to be killed at night. So, I mean, which I didn't understand initially. But I'm just saying that it's not actually that one is only thinking about it now. We have lived that life. I mean, many people say, I mean, have said to me, I'm sure Zuzi, this name opens a lot of doors. And I've told them, I said to them, wait until you know how many doors it has closed. So really, he has taught me how to live with it. But it's painful. That I must say, you only would be lying to say it's not painful. When they talk about the man and you hear something and you said, are they talking about the man that I know? And they're putting the bias of that he's a father. But because when you are old enough, you actually look beyond just being a father. So it's been very painful. And that was, I mean, but people will always be like that. No, I mean, they'll always be like that. That there will be different opinions. But I think if you were to give up, he would have long given up if it was based on some of them. He always says the overwhelming majority at least appreciate what he was doing.
Dasen, what are some of the executive members of the ANC saying at this stage? I mentioned it earlier that many of them rather have been coming by the home to pay their respects to the family.
Well, that delegation did come through earlier this morning, I think at about 11 o'clock, and that was before a prayer meeting, a prayer ceremony that took place here at the homestead. So that took about an hour or two. So this included members of the ANC nationally, as well as the provincial leadership and local leadership as well, that had come here to pay their respects. And I think it's difficult to escape that conversation that has been dominating over the past day or two, and that's the conversation about the relations between the two parties, about reconciliation, about that dream that Mangosuthu Buthelezi had, about that, ironing out all of the differences that existed between the two parties, something that many say has not been realized so far. And to that end, we also had the opportunity to speak to Zweli Mkhize, the ANC's NEC member, while he was here. And he spoke about exactly that, also talking about the origins of that conflict. And you know that much of it was in relation to the number of people that died in the 90s, which many had referred to as the black-on-black violence that engulfed the country. Let's listen to what Dr. Zweli Mkhize had to say to us earlier today after that meeting.
He has been a very important figure in the politics of South Africa, whose role we all must acknowledge. The controversy of history, you can never edit or correct. There were controversies at the time, and of course we sat down, I can relate to what we went through. We sat down and discussed the issue. Taking from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it became very clear that a lot of people got embroiled in the violence, but actually at the back of the violence was the apartheid state machinery that was generating all the conflict. And therefore, whoever was part of it, but the real engine of it was actually the apartheid third force, as it was ultimately discovered. Then our leaders came together to say, what do we do with that situation? And President Madiba held the first meetings of reconciliation with the IFP. We continued in that legacy. We actually were able to bring up these 10 asides, 5 aside, 3 aside, and we were able to stop the no-go zones. We were able to stop the inciting languages that went out and caused problems. We stopped the problem of violence during elections. All of this we were able to achieve. And in that process, Madiba had said to us, there comes a time when in a conflict you have to understand that there is no side that is completely innocent and the side that is completely wrong. And in our African approach in dealing with reconciliation, we always say, Asbalwa is itumbu. So if people have been fighting and there have been deaths, you don't count what started, when did it start, how many people died and so on. You simply say, let's stop it now, let's make sure we save the rest of the people.
And then, of course, just a moment ago, Dasen, I was speaking to the leader of the ACDP, reflecting on the political engagements that he had with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But what are some of the other political parties saying about him?
You know, this is also a particularly sensitive time, and I think some of the parties and some of the individuals that may also share certain views about what transpired in the 90s are also taking something of a sensitive approach. You would have heard there in Zweli Mkhize's response as well that he, shied away from placing any blame directly at the feet of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, rather saying that there was this third force and the apartheid machinery. And I think, what came across strongly today when we spoke to Action SA, Zwakele Mngango, who was also here, he happened to be here at the time that the ANC was holding that prayer meeting, was that he was saying something similar, that, this is a period that needs to be respected. And while there are many people that hold different views about exactly what kind of legacy Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will leave behind, he says that this is a time for family, for mourning, and for there to be a certain degree of respect. So during that interview that we had with him earlier, he was just sharing some of his insights and talking about what, in fact, he will remember of the late founder of the IFP. Let's listen into Zwakele Mngango's interview now.
Respect Mntwana Phindangene, and we know he role played in our country. Mntwana Phindangene was able to achieve everything he wanted to achieve, but the only thing he said, I failed to come up with reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC. It was always his dream to say, I want to die when I've managed to achieve this last thing I have to do. Unfortunately, he's no more now. He has failed, but I don't believe he failed. Hence I was saying, parties failed him. So ANC and IFP failed him in ensuring that there's reconciliation. So the message is what one was sending to them is that now they must sit back and do introspection and say what they can do now moving forward to ensure that there's true reconciliation between two parties, because that's the only thing that Mntwana Phindangene wanted to achieve while he was alive. We all have bad and good history. No one is perfect. But we are saying, as Africans, we respect the death. So today, the whole week, we are mourning. We must support it to the family. As Africans, yes, we might have different views, but we are saying people must really think about the family members who have lost their father, their grandfather. And he was not only the father to the Shenge family, he was a father to the nation, to the Zulu monarchy, because he was able to protect our monarchy. We have a monarch respected all over the world because of him. We have got a piece of land. It was protected under Ngonyama Trust because of him. So we see him as our father. So we are saying all those who are posting all these negative things about Ushenge, they are not only provoking the family, they are provoking the entire nation in KwaZulu-Natal and the country, because he's a statesman.
Dasen, thank you very much for that update. Dasen Thathiah in Ulundi joining us for an update on the proceedings around the funeral of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi.